Hi friends, my name's Emma. Let's talk spooky stuff. You've seen the title. This is my top 10 films of 2022. If you did miss it, I did 100 films of 2022. And I think all of these films are in there. I think so. It would make sense. But I'm really excited to get into this. As always, these are kind of interchangeable. I was sitting here up until pressing record, rearranging stuff, but I think my top 3 are pretty solid. So I'm really excited. It was such a great year for horror, and we've seen so many horror movies that morph into something else, and you'll see that theme throughout this video. So very exciting times and a lot of movies that I really enjoyed. Let's get into it. This is my top 10. These are my favorite horror movies from 2022. If you do want to see a non-horror favorite, which I did last year, like a non-horror top 10, I'd be happy to do that as well. Just be prepared because I'm into some wacky stuff, which I'm sure you guys are too. Anyway, number 10 is, we'll start from the bottom, Mad God. This might surprise some of you. This is by Phil Tippett, and it's a fully stop motion animation film that took more than 30 years to make. Phil Tippett started working on this in the 80s and considered abandoning it when he worked on Jurassic Park, but it finally came to fruition thanks to a Kickstarter campaign. It's about an assassin who travels through this nightmarish underworld full of tortured souls. It's a pretty straightforward storyline, but just the animation and the way it all came together, including the soundtrack, which is so bizarre in this. It's by Dan Wool, and it just transports you to another time. I think it was something really fresh and really different, and I went into it not thinking I would like it at all, and I got really immersed. And I know it's not for everyone. It's very surrealist, very bizarre. I really like seeing all of the different creatures and just like what was in his brain. I think we're so used to works like Del Toro and seeing the same kind of looking monsters, so I thought that was a really interesting aspect. And yeah, I did not think a stop brain horror movie would be making my top 10. Number 9 is a surprise again, and I love films that surprise me, and Smile definitely surprised me. So Smile was heavily marketed this year, and I thought it was, especially with the kind of gimmick that it's, you know, this haunted smile that we kept seeing everywhere. And they even did it in like baseball games, I think it was. They did people coming to the front of the arena, and the marketing was, instead of showing a trailer, they would focus in on them. And it was this weird curiosity, and I thought that was bang on, but it's also very like popcorn horror-ish, and I thought that was really interesting because when you watch the movie, you find out it's got some depth to it, some real depth to it, and it's not as, I guess, normie as I thought it was going to be, which was a really cool surprise. Smile is about a doctor who witnesses a traumatic event, and from there she is forever changed. She sees the smile and she needs to know what is behind it. What I like about this film is it does, I mean, as much as I'm saying it was a surprise, it isn't unique. It follows the same kind of tent poles as Ring, which I'm a huge fan of, obviously. So it kind of scratched that itch of must get to the bottom of it, time ticking, investigate the paranormal element horror. But I think if you watch it back, and if you haven't watched it yet, please keep an eye on the color theory throughout it, because it's insane. The blues and the pinks. After I saw it, I could not believe that other people didn't watch it like that. So I would love to know if anyone else did. But I just thought it was a really interesting, kind of satisfying scratch that itch horror movie with all of those elements we've seen time and time again, but there was an extra layer of depth. Of course, I'm keeping this spoiler free, but yeah, I just really liked the places it went, and I will rewatch that movie time and time again. It's I feel like it has really good rewatchable factor. Now on to a very unpopular choice. I know a lot of people hated this film, and for many reasons. It's not the obvious reasons, but I've seen many discussions about how bad this film was, but I really liked it, and I didn't see it as being problematic like a lot of people. It's Men. I'm so sorry, but I've got to be truthful here, you know? Like, I need to. That's how this channel survives, is by being really honest about my opinions, and I really liked Men, and I did not even click that people were going to be mad about this, which is so stupid. Men is an Alex Garland film, and I do understand to an extent it is about the perspective of women in this world, and it's written and directed by a man, but nonetheless, I really enjoyed this film. The film stars Jessie Buckley, and she goes to this Airbnb rental in the English countryside and gets this amazing house to escape a traumatic event she's just been through. And while she's there, there is just like a creepy guy who suddenly is everywhere. That's the best way to put it. It's a very surrealist horror. It turns into something else, and it just morphs. And what I really liked about it was all of the cryptic kind of symbolism, and a lot of it I didn't understand, and I had to research later. I had to look up the Green Man and that origin and that lore, but I felt like there was also a lot of crossovers from like Adam and Eve and the apple symbolism, and there was just so much to explore, and I was really shocked and surprised. And you know, it's A24, when you leave the cinema you're like, what just happened? And I'm so glad none of it was spoiled for me. But as well, the soundtrack is so good. And I also didn't know that Elton John did the song Love Song. And I played it even to people after that. I'm like, do you know who sings this? It's Elton John. That might be a silly thing, but just the way the soundtrack kind of mirrors that feeling of this uncomfortable stirring in a quiet life. I can't explain it, but it does it so well. And even just like the scores of the soundtrack, the tunnel scene, like, you know, it's just beautiful. It was beautiful, and it captured a feeling in that film that I haven't really seen replicated, that uneasy feeling in the, you know, in everyday norms. So I thought that was fantastic. I'm sorry. On to a more popular opinion. I loved Fresh. Fresh got my number 7 position. The stylization of this film is so cool, aesthetically so pleasing, and it's kind of like this groovy dark film, which is really weird to say. Again, another film that has a very heavy subject matter, but the way it's delivered, people seem to accept a lot more. The film follows Noah, who's Daisy Edgar Jones, and she meets Steve, Sebastian Stan, at a grocery store. She's been going through this whole process of trying to date again using dating apps, and she takes a chance on this guy at a grocery store, and he seems to have an appetite for something else. It is really fun, like just seeing it all kind of play out, because from the trailers and I guess a bit of the blurb, you know really what's going to happen, but there's then this whole kind of shift in it, which I really enjoyed, and trying to figure out where it was going from there, and the people's intentions and the stories behind it were really interesting. And I think a lot of people had a lot of the same questions about the characters' motives or who they were to each other, which I thought was really interesting, because it wasn't like people were worried about plot holes in this film. People were just more excited to, you know, get a sequel or find out more about it, which is always a great indicator that a film has the audience so glued to it that they want to know more about these like devilish characters. But absolutely loved Fresh. I thought it was fresh, and it really, I love when things are dark but like edgy and like cool. It's a very niche market, and I think they did it really well. Talking about dark, love my disturbing films, and Resurrection. I think I gave this film a 7 when I first watched it, and I did an actual spoiler-free video on it, which is really rare. That's when you know that something has got stuck in my brain, and I think I did that video maybe a couple of days after I watched the film. But I've rewatched it, and I've also just never stopped thinking about it. There's things in that movie that are like burnt into my brain, and I think it's incredibly effective. The movie stars Rebecca Hall and Tim Roth, and in this one, we follow a woman who seems capable, disciplined, and very successful. Everything is under control in her life until she locks eyes with someone from her past. The secrets and the connection they have is terrifying. Again, another film that I've seen a lot of discussions about. It is the whole story about abusive relationships, and there's a monologue in this film that kills me. It's just one of the most powerful things I've ever seen, ever heard, and it uses a lot of like alluding to. And I think that that's really interesting in this situation, because when people are in this situation, you hear stories. There's not a lot of recorded evidence that's shown, and I think it really uses that your mind to really put together the picture, and it's more terrifying than it could ever be, especially delving into someone's mind. There's a lot of theories again about this one, which I think again so interesting. If you want to check out my video, a lot of people have left them in the comments. So interesting, the different ways people have seen this, and especially from the different walks of life and perspectives that people have around this subject matter. But I thought it was superbly done, and it really shows the spiral and the control that people can have over you, and it's so terrifying. So highly enjoyed that one. Rebecca Hall, I don't know how she does it. She puts herself in a different place, and she is amazing. I can't wait to see the next horror movie that she's in because she picks the really dark ones. Number 5 was a newer watch for me and a very big surprise, which was Bones and All. This is based on a novel of the same name. I adored this film, and I do know it is a very slow film, and I think that a lot of people have a frustration with how slow it is, but I had a really good screening experience and I felt fully immersed. This film is directed by Luca Guadagnino, starring Timothée Chalamet and Taylor Russell, and I actually thought Taylor Russell was the standout in this film, or besides one, we'll get to it, but I think that she was fantastic, and because we had only seen her in Escape Room, it was a completely different side of her. I should say, like, for horror people, I know she was in Waves, which I have not seen. I know, don't hurt me. I need to see it. I know I need to see it. I'm emotionally preparing myself. But I'd be really excited to see what she does with horror moving forward, and if she goes down this route of doing more like experimental kind of like slower films, or if she goes back to the kind of, you know, escape room popcorn horror. The film is about a cannibalistic woman who finds out how to survive living in a world with people. That's basic. It's like a coming of age for cannibalism. And it's also quite romantic. People say it's a love story. I don't know if I subscribe to that. But I thought it was just beautiful. And the way it kind of focuses on society and like these people among us that we don't know. And I thought that was a really cool concept. Obviously we see that all the time with vampires, but I thought it was really interesting in this regard. But Mark Rylance, who plays the villain in this, is the most terrifying character I've ever seen. Absolutely. If you have not seen it, go watch this. And what his performance, he is just, oh my God, I found it really hard to just watch him on screen. Like, I was so terrified. And it is a slow film, but I feel like it wraps around in a really interesting way. Although I heard a lot of people had problems with the structure because of like the third act. But it makes a lot of sense that it's a book because it feels like there's so much more that could be said. But I really enjoyed it. I super enjoyed it. I thought it was I think I cried. I think I may have cried. It was this beautiful journey film with a lot of really, really dark elements. And I'm not talking about just the things that you think I am. Although it is bloody and there's a lot of gore, there's a lot of interesting things bubbling away that really will surprise you. So I really enjoyed those moments. I found it to be really scary because it was towing on this line of like symbolism for what they were and how people are treated in society. So I thought it was fantastically done. Number 4 for me is a surprising random movie that I just watched at home one day, and I'm like, oh my God, why are more people not talking about it? And I think a lot of people are talking about it, but not as many that should. It's You Won't Be Alone. This is a Macedonian film. It's about an isolated mountain village in the 19th century where a young girl is kidnapped, then transformed. It has like a little paranormal aspect, but it also has this really interesting idea, and it's kind of like this journey film, and the idea is so kind of mind-boggling when you're watching it, but works so well as a horror movie. But the cinematography for this film is just phenomenal. It's a beautiful film with like laced with darkness, and it's so interesting because the people in the situations don't even understand how dark it is, but as a spectator, you just feel special that you're able to even watch this story unfold, and that's how I felt during the whole film. I just felt really special to be able to see this story, and it's mind-boggling, beautiful, all of that stuff together. It is, I think it's quite a longer film, but it's definitely worth it. And I wouldn't say it's like a slow film either. It's just you need to invest a lot of energy watching it because it takes a lot out of you, but in the best way possible. According to the writer-director, they got the idea from researching Macedonian folktales and discovered that this was a reoccurring theme. I don't want to give it away, but it is really interesting to watch it unravel. It's a very unique premise, and done in a very serious manner. It's like a drama with this horror element bubbling underneath. And yeah, it's fantastic. Highly recommend. And I hope that I've made it like so mysterious that you need to watch it now. Number 3, I'm like almost so sad and I want to switch this out so it gets higher. It's Nope. That was the only film I knew I would like because I'm a fan of this subgenre theme and I'm a huge fan of Jordan Peele. And I know a lot of people were really, I think a lot of people were disappointed by this film, I'm going to be honest. I saw that comment a lot and I saw a lot of people in my Discord talking about that. But Nope is so fucking fantastic. And I can't tell you, I had the worst experience with this film in a weird way. I love this film, but I got to see it a little bit earlier because I got to interview one of the cast members, and I had to wait for so long before talking about it on my channel, and it sucked because it didn't come out here for like, I think it was like 2 months or a long time after it came out in America, and I couldn't talk about it, and I wanted to say so many things. And by the time I could, it was just, everyone was over it. But I think I saw this 3 times at the cinema, and I think it's just one of the most there's just so much. There's so much. The interwoven story, and the cast, Daniel Kaluuya and Kiki Palmer. Kiki Palmer is amazing. I did not know she was this cool. They need to put her in a Scream movie, I'm telling you right now. It was just this magic, lightning in a bottle, and also this Jordan Peele adventure where Jordan Peele, you never know what you're going to get. I remember the first time when I sat down and watched Us for the first time, I was so worried that it had been spoiled for me because it was out in America for a little while beforehand. I was like, as soon as the titles come up on the screen, I'm like, wait, what is this about? I know, sorry, I'm going off track. But Jordan Peele, you have to prepare yourself, embrace yourself to watch the film at least twice because you're never going to catch everything. And what I love so much about Nope is the end. You don't understand the start until you see the end. And if you haven't seen it a second time, you probably don't understand what I'm saying. Go back and watch it and you might change your mind about what's happening. The film is so intricate, but so many layers that every time you watch it, you'll get something else out. And I was very attached to the themes in this. Obviously, the sky, I'm a big fan of that kind of theme. And there's also this side plot, which is really erratic and strange. And I am very personally attached to that because that's like a big fear of mine. And it's also something that I knew exactly where they had drawn the real story from. So it was just like this weird coming together of like a lot of things and elements that I really like. And the performances were phenomenal. It was a scary movie in broad daylight. The movie is about a family that own this ranch where they have these horses that they train for films. And then an extraordinary event both devastates their lives and changes it forever. It's fantastic. Watch it again. Watch it again. It's just, I know, I'm trying to be spoiler free, but it's like impossible with Nope. But it's just so fantastic. The lighting, the music, it's Jordan Peele. It's Jordan Peele. I think that for now, I go Us, Nope, and then Get Out now. Number 2, again, I guess 1, 2, and 3 are just, it's hard. But I know they're all solid films, but it was hard to place them between each other. But number 2 for me is Barbarian. This is such a surprise film. I love it so much. And another film that kind of turns into something else, has a little bit of a journey to it. And it's by a first-time director, Zach Cregger. The film stars Georgina Campbell, Bill Skarsgård, and Justin Long. You know Justin Long, my dude. He's so funny. I don't want to say it, but he's just so funny. But this film is really interesting the way it unravels. It's about a woman who goes into an Airbnb in a rough neighborhood, and as she's entering, she realizes that it's been double booked and someone else comes to the door, and she has to make the decision whether she's going to trust this stranger and spend the night in the house or, you know, go and try and find somewhere even though it's too late, and she might have to sleep in her car and is unsafe, and she takes a chance on a stranger, but she should be more worried about other things lurking. I think that this movie was so scary, and I don't care if you say it's not scary. What are you doing, guys? We want to be scared. I was terrified. That first act is so scary because you don't know where the evil is. You can just feel it. It's in the air. You can cut the tension with a knife. It scared me so much. And it goes through a lot of different tonal changes, which I think probably people have problems with, but I absolutely loved it. I love that feeling of just bizarreness, and it's different to like how Ari Aster like drops us and like does this kind of twist reveal, not reveal, but twist darkness. It's like this film goes like, this is really scary, but also pretty funny. And it was like such a weird mismatch of being like terrified 1 second and then laughing at a character. And I just think it was fantastic. A film that I will rewatch over and over and over again. The special effects and like the makeup is so cool, gritty, dark, disgusting, and I'm here for it. I loved every moment of it, especially the end song for the credits. I love that. That's like my favorite thing. Anyway, absolutely loved Barbarian. Big fan. And then my number one, I'm sure you can guess what it is by now, the film that's missing, is X. I loved X so much. I never thought my number one would be a slasher, but here we are. X for me is like the ultimate slasher. And I know the film that's missing from this list is Pearl. I did enjoy Pearl, but just not as much as X at all. And a lot of people had that, like they either like one or the other more, because Pearl is more of a character study, which is usually the film I'd go for. But I just loved all of the elements and how they combined all of the themes. I think it was just so well perfected in X. X is, of course, directed by Ty West. It stars Mia Goth, Jenna Ortega, she did get on this list, and Brittany Snow and Kid Cudi. Kid Cudi was so good, by the way. But I just loved everyone in this film, and just the way it all came together, and the reveals with Mia Goth, she was just fantastic, and this film just... she's been in, obviously she's been doing horror for a long time, or like very much like thriller dramas. And this film just really opened her up. And I'm just so excited because we've got Pearl and then we're having Maxine. But I enjoyed the whole element about the adult film industry and that kind of coming in. The film is about an adult entertainment film crew that come in to shoot a film at a ranch that is owned by an elderly couple, and they're out in their kind of second property on the facility, and they may have just towed the line of what's acceptable. I love the whole story about Jenna Ortega, and she comes in as like a soundie to help her boyfriend who's there as well, and their relationship. There was just so many different layers, and it had so much to say about, that industry, and the whole idea that it's like this slasher film that's so open about sex, and the women are like in charge of a lot of that is really interesting and very different for the genre, and I really enjoyed that. I just enjoyed every element, and it was so shocking, a lot of stuff that happened, because you weren't sure like which way it was going to go. Is this going to get paranormal? Like there was a lot of eeriness, and also very stereotypical because it's based on kind of like Texas Chainsaw Massacre. They do the booty shot, all that kind of stuff. So it was like this fun kind of play or homage to a lot of those films, but in such like a modern way, even though it's set in the 70s. I just loved how it was all kind of like brought together and showed a different side of the slasher, I guess. Anyway, I've spoken your ear off. I did this totally unscripted because I wanted to just express how excited I was about these movies, and my voice is going now. So thank you so much for being here, and thank you so much for a great year. Again, if you do want to see my top 10 non-horror movies of 2022, what year is it? Yeah. Please let me know down in the comments, and let me know what your top 10 were. I would love to hear. Thank you all for all of your support this year, and I will see you very soon for another video. Stay safe and stay spooky. Bye, friends.